Thanks be to God. If we were to summarize the nub of the two readings for this evening, it's all about God's mission. It's about being sent. What a fascinating story from Isaiah 6. Did you catch the visual? Here we have these seraphs with 6 wings, this 6-winged creature. With 2 they're covering their eyes, with 2 they're covering their feet, and with 2 they're flying. Now I'm not certain with the 2 that's covering their eyes how they're seeing quite where they're flying. But here we are in this presence, and they're calling out to each other and saying words that we say in worship. Holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. And here it is buzzing around. This is what Isaiah is seeing. And then he hears this summons inside of him to be sent. And he said, whoa, I can't go. I'm unworthy. Not me. Who am I? Who can I, God, do your business? And then the seraph has the nerve to fly to the altar with some tongs, takes a coal, touches the lips, singes the lips of Isaiah, and then he says, who will go? And Isaiah volunteers with singed lips. Here I am, send me. And then we have the story of the sending of the 70. And this whole preparation of going into the community to tell others about God. This whole missional thrust of not shopping around for who's got better meals, but stay at the house where you first settle, where they welcome you, where the peace abides. Don't go hopping around looking for softer beds. Stay where you're put and do your work. It's about God's mission. Tonight, Nicholas is a story as well about the sending of God's mission and how God sent this man to go out, who served in the church as a bishop, yes, but who also stood up on behalf of the poor and who told many about who Jesus Christ was in his day. Now, last week we had a couple of friends that visited us. I happened to notice that Eusebius is back with us. You might recall he's the father of church history. He's the one who began to write about all this stuff. So Eusebius, I'm glad you're here because I really don't know too much more than a few of the children's stories about jolly old St. Nicholas. So if you could enlighten us this evening, we welcome you back.
Well, it's a pleasure to be back. I was able to pick up one of these tablets that I saw Era use last time so I could bring it back. It's much improved since, the tablet's much improved since my day anyway.
Yeah.
So you're talking about St. Nicholas today, right?
That's correct.
Well, he happened to be a contemporary of mine. He was born a couple years after, died a couple years after I did, but you know,
just
overall.
To remind me, I think you said like you were like 300.
Yeah, it was a little, let's say about 263-ish to 230-ish.
Yeah, were any of you around about that period? I thought some of you graduated from high school that year, perhaps. Yeah. Just kidding, Pastor Park.
But yeah, he was a contemporary of mine. But you see, he was one of those people that took ministry seriously, whereas I, went on to write history. I helped write some of the creeds and helped form some of the basis for theology. Saint Nicholas of Myra, he was one of those Christians that stayed where he was, and he worked within the area of Myra, and really worked to spread the word of Christ. He was born into a Christian home, a wealthy Christian home, and unfortunately, early on in his life, his parents died, and so he was sent off to live with his uncle, who just happened to be named Nicholas as well.
Okay.
And what Nicholas did was, Nicholas was a priest, I believe maybe even a bishop. And so
is this Nicholas the uncle or Nicholas the one who went to live with him?
Well,
you're confusing.
Nicholas the uncle.
Oh, well.
I believe, at least he was a priest. Anyway, he tonsured Nicholas of Myra.
Tonsured.
Yeah, not like tonsils, but tonsured. So they shave off the portion of the head, you know, a big
the crown
bald
head?
spot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think you're close to being tonsured.
Yeah.
And maybe that's probably even how it started. Some priests were a little irritated. They were the only ones that were bald, and so they said everyone needs to do this. Anyway, so he was tonsured as a reader as well as a presbyter or a priest. And so he grew up in there, and he went on to be a great priest. But he's also credited with several miracles.
Oh, really? Can you tell us about that
Yeah.
a bit?
While Myra being a port city, would oftentimes have ships come in and leave. And the ship of that had a whole ton of grain in it, lots and lots of grain, came into the port one time. And this is during one of their famines, or you know, with food was getting scarce anyway. Mm-hmm. And so the ship came in with all this wheat grain, and you know, St. Nicholas went to the sailors and said, you know, we really don't have much food here. Mm. You know, we're without this food, this source. And he said, you know, sailors, how about you just give us some of that grain? You give us some of that grain and don't worry about it. It'll be taken care of by God. And so the sailors at first were kind of reluctant, especially since this was Emperor Constantine's grain. You know, you don't mess with the emperor's grain. You know, and I know as Eusebius, I know because I'm, you know, kind of in the inner circle. I'm in favor with Constantine. Anyway, so he pulls off all this grain, and the sailors sail to Constantinople. And you know what happened?
No, tell us.
So when they got there, the exact amount of grain that was put onto the ship was taken off of the ship. Now, they'd left almost a whole year's worth of grain in Myra, but they still had plenty. I mean, it's kind of like that story of Jesus with the loaves and the fishes. There's plenty to go around.
It's sort of like the Northern Illinois Food Bank providing food in and through Grace here. What a great story. He sort of was a Robin Hood, if you will.
Yes, yes.
Taking from Constantine to feed the people.
Exactly. But Constantine got everything that he had originally. And then there's this other miracle that goes into how he is the patron saint of children. Now, there happened to be a butcher, and this butcher, during another one of these famines or times of needing food, this butcher decided to lure 3 little kids into his butcher shop. And you know, he wasn't giving them candy or meat or anything. This butcher was there to actually slaughter the kids, and he slaughtered them and put them into a barrel. Now, St. Nicholas happened to be passing by one day, right around the time that this happened, and just kind of sensed that something was not right with this butcher. And so he realized and figured out somehow that this barrel over here contained the bodies of these 3 young boys. And so he prayed and prayed and prayed, and pretty soon those 3 boys were brought back to life. Quite interesting, you know.
I hope that butcher still went to jail.
Who knows, you know? I'm sure he just kind of left town after that, you know.
I hope not.
You know, people would be a little sketched out by what he was serving in his butcher shop. But so he became the patron saint of not butchers, but the patron saint of children. He's the patron saint of sailors, thieves, pawnbrokers, students. So students, if you're having a test coming up, make sure you pray to St. Nicholas, and hopefully he'll help you out. Yeah, there's so many others. I believe coopers, so different people, you know, tons of different people are part of this. And I'm not certain, but I think he might be a patron saint from other parts of the world as well.
Now,
oh, good. Era, you're here because...
I have a very loud voice today. Oh, that's better. Oh. Well, I have to say...
Welcome back, Aristosthenes.
Thank you. You speak again so much about these places, but no one can visualize.
But I
You
love the
can't
stories.
see.
I mean, who can imagine
But
grain,
stories
a ship,
without
and
location are missing such a vital.
I said there was a
part.
port around there somewhere.
Well, could you enlighten us where in the world this Mira is?
I would love to.
Mira, maybe in
Yes.
your little tablet.
Here we are. My screen is here. Thank you. Just need to hack in again. Now, I do have to double check one thing, because I'm fairly certain in the research that I've done that this is where St. Nicholas is supposed to be from. I don't fully understand why people think this, but I could have sworn that that is what everyone says. But to no matter, Mira, as you said, a fine place, is actually far, far away on the, not the entire other side of the world, but quite a ways down, here in this modern-day Turkey of yours. As you can see right here, this is Myra, and so, as you can see, in this Turkey, a little bit down to the north of here, if you see where the Sea of Marmia is, that is where Constantinople is. So your little story there, those were sailors that were coming from the south and moving north along to get into Constantinople.
Yes.
Now, you didn't mention his death at all. Where was it that he died?
I haven't gotten there, but I believe it was Mira as well.
It
Correct?
was, but I found a very interesting thing, is that his body now resides in a different place. It resides in a city called Bari in Italy, which is interesting. It's a nice place to be buried in Bari. But now, this St. Nicholas that you said, you know, the patron saint of so many things, of thieves, I suppose you would want someone to pray to. But all of these places, it is remarkable to me how well he was loved. And so the patron saint of the country of Austria, of Belgium, of Germany, Greece,
Yes.
France, Sicily,
You gonna tell me Sweden too?
Sweden, we'll get to it.
See, I knew they were
Calm
always
down, young
looking
man.
for some smart guys, you know?
Now, more than just countries, individual cities have loved him so much that they've claimed him as their saint. Cities and countries like Albania, Bulgaria, Croatia, England, Ireland, the Netherlands, Russia, Scotland, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, the Ukraine, Romania, Palestine, Malta, Lithuania. Whew.
I guess I don't see Sweden on the list.
Oh,
Oops.
hold on. Hungary.
Oh, New York.
In places far off, even places in the Philippines, in Australia, Colombia, South America is very fond of St. Nick, with him being a patron saint in Aruba, Argentina, Peru, Venezuela. He is everywhere, and even someplace in your own country, this New York, New York.
Very
I don't know
nice.
why you repeat it. We get it the first time. But so many places around the world that claim him as a saint, it just shows that this man must have touched so many lives with his story.
Well, thank you, Aristosthenes.
Absolutely.
We appreciate
So
it
he
as
touched
well.
a lot of different people's lives, and he did that by spreading, as I said early on, he was born from wealthy parents, and so he spread that wealth. He shared his resources with others. So people would put their shoes out in front of their houses in the evening time, and he would come along and put coins or some sort of money or something in each of those shoes on his way around. There's even a story about him when he'd found out about there's this poor man, and this poor man had 3 daughters.
I get
And
that.
he wasn't poor because he had 3 daughters. He was just a
Believe
poor
me, it's
man.
true.
And so he had, he had this dilemma. Since he was poor, he didn't have the funds for a dowry for each of his 3 daughters. Maybe he didn't even have funds for one of those women. And so the story goes is that the man would have had to, was really worried and considering that he might have to put his daughters into prostitution, but instead, one night, there's a couple different ways the story goes. One night, St. Nicholas came by and put 3 bags of gold into that poor man's house. And the other versions say he went by for 3 nights and put 1 bag each night into the man's house. But the story that I think goes along greatest with the version of St. Nicholas that this time period has come up with is that somehow this jolly old St. Nick, or St. Nicholas, he got up onto the roof one night and he somehow took the coins and put them down the chimney. Now, it just so happens that night, one of the daughters had cleaned some of her stockings and had put them by the fire to dry. And somehow, that when those coins went down the chimney, they landed into one of the stockings. And so that was a dowry enough for all 3 of the daughters. It's quite interesting how he did it. And you know what? I know that too, as I was researching your version of St. Nicholas, how he had this big tummy and, he's this guy that wears a bunch of red, velvet clothing with white. He wasn't a very big man at all. In fact, the bones that they've looked at in, where was it?
Berry,
Italy. They looked at it and they saw that he was probably a man that was only about 5 feet tall. And he actually had a broken nose, they found. And so St. Nicholas wasn't that big. And here's the greatest thing about this whole story about St. Nicholas. When that poor man came to say thank you to St. Nicholas, because he didn't know it was going to happen. In fact, St. Nicholas did it in the middle of the night, so that way the man wouldn't have to take his charity publicly. He said, thank you, St. Nicholas. And St. Nicholas said, oh, me? No, thank God alone. So he continued even in his gift-giving to point to God, to point to what God is doing in the world, and to share God's love through his actions.
Well, thank you, Eusebius. Thank you, Aristosthenes, for being with us tonight. I hope you can join us next week. If you're available, if you're around, we'd appreciate it.
I would go to the Library of Alexandria, but you all lost it. So
yes, we
I'll be
did.
here.
So as we kind of wrap up and think about this story of St. Nicholas and how it works and what it teaches us, it goes back to our gospel reading for tonight around that belief and understanding that God provides as we do what God calls us to do. And that was truly Nicholas's nature. He was one who cared about people who suffered in poverty in his community. And there are many stories told of the ways in which he gathered resources together to try to meet the needs of the people. And that's what we see as well in our gospel story. How the 70 went out. They didn't have anything to carry, but they met the needs through praying for the sick and curing them, sharing the good news of the kingdom, and sharing bread with the people who hosted them. Because we serve a God of amazing abundance, a God who provides. So as you continue your preparations for this Christmas season with your family, again, I encourage you to keep in mind that the purpose around which we gather, that God took on human flesh in our midst because of this great story of love. It's God's generosity. It's the God who provides, and it's the God who cares about everyone. So may God empower us to continue to find the ways as God sends us out to be able to shower others with the abundance God provides for us. Most of all, his love and the story of Christ our Lord, who gives us hope. Thanks be to God tonight for one faithful servant, one faithful bishop by the name of Nicholas, who comes from Greece and who dies ultimately in Myra. Let's stand together as we sing our hymn of the day.